They left them to die. In the frozen forests outside Spokane, a Navy SEAL and his pregnant German Shepherd were beaten, robbed of radio, and hung helplessly in the wind. No gear, no help, only the cold, the wolves, and the cruel silence of winter tightening like a noose around their fate. His vision blurred, her breathing shallow, and hope faded into white darkness. And then, through the storm, a figure appeared. Not a wolf, not the enemy, but a 42-year-old war veteran in a green coat, with a loyal shepherd at his side. What he did next would defy logic, loyalty, and destiny. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. Snow blanketed the silent evergreen forest outside Spokane, Washington, whispering in cold winds that slithered between tall pine trunks like unseen phantoms. The world, under pale moonlight, was coated in white and silence, as if winter itself held its breath. Noah Carter, 39, tall and broad-shouldered, walked through the snow with the posture of a man who never fully put down his burdens. A faded scar ran along his jawline, and gray specks in his stubble hinted at both age and sleepless nights. His dark brown hair, cut short from habit rather than style, held flecks of snow, and his deep-set eyes seemed to carry memories too heavy to share. Echoes of places where silence was made of dust, and grief was made of names engraved on helmets. That silence followed him even here. Beside him padded Luna, a 5-year-old female German shepherd. She was strong, with thick black and tan fur, amber eyes full of intelligence, and graceful movements sharpened by training. But tonight, her steps were slower, more guarded. Her belly visibly round with life, carrying unborn pups sheltered beneath her ribs. She was tired, but alert, and though her gait showed strain, her gaze never wavered. Her instincts remained razor-sharp. They had been sent on a solitary patrol by Dennis Ward, the temporary acting supervisor at the Spokane Ranger Station. Dennis, in his mid-40s, appeared composed and orderly, always in immaculate ranger uniforms, polished boots, and perfectly combed hair. He spoke little, smiled as though it were a rehearsed habit, and held a reputation for noticing mistakes more than people. Earlier that day, he had handed Noah an old laminated map with routes marked for routine sensor checks, telling him that one particular sensor on North Ridge needed investigation. Noah noticed oddities, paths drawn differently, subtle misplacements. They were small details, the kind only a trained eye would spot. But he said nothing. Years as a SEAL taught him that sometimes the silent questions were the most dangerous ones. Luna paused, ears twitching. She sniffed the air, nose low to the snow. Noah followed her gaze to faint impressions in the white. Footprints. Deep. Fresh. Heavy, too heavy for rangers, too purposeful for hikers. 10 yards ahead, he saw a half-buried cigarette butt. Still warm. The wind shifted, and with it came a sound. Not a howl. Not wind. Mechanical. Barely audible. Noah stepped closer, brushing snow from a pine trunk. Hidden in a hollow, an infrared camera, active, watching. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Luna's hackles rose, her body tensed, and then the forest moved. Snow exploded. Branches whipped aside. 6 figures in camouflage gear stormed from the darkness with brutal precision. Their boots hammered the frozen ground. Metal rods glimmered beneath the moonlight. Noah reached for his radio, but a hard strike cracked against his shoulder before he touched it. A second blow to his ribs knocked the breath from him, forcing him to one knee. Luna lunged with a growl, biting into a man's arm, but a vicious kick caught her in the abdomen, sending her yelping back, her swollen belly trembling from the impact. "Grab him!" the tallest attacker barked. He was thick-built, with a frost-bitten beard and lifeless blue eyes. His voice held no emotion, just duty, like cruelty was a shift he had simply clocked into. Noah fought back, but chains were wrapped around his legs, his arms, his wrists, pulling tight. His radio was ripped from his belt and crushed beneath a boot. His sidearm disappeared from its holster. Within minutes, Noah was stripped of gear and hoisted upward by his ankles, bound to a splintered branch that curved like a crude gallows. His world flipped. His blood rushed to his face. His breaths turned shallow. The forest spun in white blurs. Luna tried again, to stand, to bark, to protect, but they bound her muzzle and tied her against a tree, rope biting into her round belly. She lay trembling in the snow, her amber eyes fixed on Noah, not in fear, but in stubborn, unwavering loyalty. "Leave them," the tall man muttered. "Cold finishes what we started." "Or wolves," another added with a grin. Their footsteps faded into the blizzard. The pines shook, the wind howled. The world went still. For a moment, Noah felt nothing. No pain, no fear, just numbness. And in that numbness, memories crept back. The desert ambush, the team he couldn't save, the night his K9 partner died on his lap. He saw faces, heard radio static, smelled sand, blood, cordite. He blinked, forcing reality back. "Stay with me, girl," he whispered hoarsely. Luna shivered weakly, her tail twitching once. A response, a promise. Somewhere far off, a wolf howled, a haunting, distant echo. But then something else followed, footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate, human. Luna lifted her head, not in alarm but in awareness, almost recognition. Through the swirling curtain of snow, a shape emerged. Not violent, not hurried. A tall figure in a worn military green coat, moving with calm purpose. Beside him walked another German shepherd, larger than Luna. Its amber eyes glowed like embers in winter twilight. Not hunting, not fearful, just watching. Not a threat, not a rescuer. Something in between. Something inevitable. Snow drifted in slow spirals as Ethan Cole moved through the thick woods, his boots sinking silently into the powder beneath him. He was 42, tall with a rugged build shaped by military discipline, his shoulders still squared like he was waiting for orders even years after discharge. His once dark hair was now streaked with gray, cut short but unstyled, and his beard was trimmed unevenly, like someone who tried to care but often forgot. His eyes, though, were sharp, hazel with flecks of steel, watchful, alert, and always slightly tired, like they carried the echoes of distant battlefields. Ethan had served in Afghanistan, seen nights lit by tracer fire and mornings haunted by names never called again. Those memories didn't show in his words, because he spoke little, but they clung to him. The way he always walked slightly ahead of his dog, the way he scanned the tree line without thinking, the way he paused when the woods grew too quiet. Beside him walked Ranger, a 5-year-old male German shepherd, larger than most, with a dense coat of black and rich amber fur. His ears stood tall, and his amber eyes were deep and discerning, mirroring something like human intuition. Ranger had once been trained for K9 operations, but was let go for being too independent. Yet, with Ethan, independence became loyalty, and stubbornness became vigilance. Ranger trotted slightly ahead now, nose raised, paws deliberate, not sniffing for rabbits or tracks, but something else, something urgent. Ethan stopped. The forest changed, the wind shifted. He felt it before he heard it. The wrongness, the stillness, the way nature itself seemed to hold its breath. His instincts sharpened. Ranger's head snapped to the right, his fur bristling, his teeth barely showing in a low growl. It wasn't excitement. It was warning. Ethan moved forward silently, choosing instinct over logic. Ranger led him deeper, through a narrow path between pines, where the snow seemed less peaceful and more disturbed. Beneath the pale moonlight, Ethan saw tracks, heavy boot prints, deep, unmasked, too many to be hikers or even rangers. They didn't try to hide. They wanted to disappear beyond discovery, not behind deception. And then Ethan saw it. At first, it didn't look human, just a shape, dark, hanging still and silent from a pine branch, like a forgotten coat caught in a storm. But the wind turned, and he saw it clearly. A man, hoisted upside down, ankles bound with thick rope, jacket torn, hair matted with blood and snow. His arms hung limply, graze marks across his face, eyelids twitching from faint consciousness. 6 feet beyond, another shape, smaller, trembling, tied to a base of a spruce. A female German shepherd, heavily pregnant, her muzzle bound, chest heaving in pain and cold. She lifted her head weakly, not to bark, but only to look, her amber eyes fixed, not on Ethan, but on Ranger. Something passed between the two dogs in silence. Not fear, recognition. Ethan knelt at the snow beneath the hanging man, brushing away the frost. The man's breathing was shallow, ragged, but alive. His coat was military in make but modified for ranger use. His boots were issued, his knife sheath empty, his radio missing. His features were sharp, jagged jawline with coarse stubble, fading bruises across his forehead, dark hair short and regulation cut. His skin was pale beneath bruises, lips cracked, his face strong but worn. He looked like someone who had survived worse things but never expected betrayal. Ethan muttered quietly, partly to himself, "Damn, soldier. What snowstorm did you pick to hang from a tree tonight?" He pulled a worn tactical knife from his belt, old military steel, pitted with age yet sharp, because he honed it obsessively, and climbed the tree with careful footing. He cut through the rope slowly, catching the man before he hit the ground. Ranger stood guard, ears alert, scanning the woods for movement, but the attackers were long gone. The pregnant dog whimpered. Ethan moved to her gently, cutting the ropes, removing the binding from her muzzle. She didn't growl. She didn't flinch. She simply looked at him, then pressed her head against his hand as though whispering something unspoken. Ethan placed his coat over her, shielding her from icy winds. The man stirred. His voice cracked, dry as frozen wind. "Name?" "Noah. Carter." Ethan nodded. "Easy, Noah. You're safe. Well, safer than you were in a tree." Noah tried to sit up. Pain tore through his body, his lungs burning from cold and concussion. He looked around, and when he saw Luna, the dog, he stilled. Relief, pain, guilt, protection, all stormed across his face like weather. He reached out weakly. Luna nudged forward, pressing her nose against his hand softly. Ethan observed this, eyes narrowed, curiosity stirring. He understood the look Noah gave the dog. It wasn't ownership. It was trust. Deep, unspoken trust. Noah looked up, his voice hoarse. They knew I wouldn't leave her." Ethan didn't ask who they were. He didn't ask why Noah was sent alone. He simply nodded, the kind of nod men give when they see things they've seen before. Men don't hang upside down in the woods for wandering into the wrong place. They hang because someone wanted them gone. He put one arm under Noah's shoulder and hoisted him up. "Come on, you're not dying out here." The forest howled behind him, not just with wind, but something more primal. Wolves, maybe. Or just the warning of something worse. Men. Luna stood on shaky legs. Ranger stepped beside her, like a shield. Ethan glanced between them. "Looks like you've got a guardian, too," he muttered. And so, through the freezing snow, a battered seal, a weathered veteran, a faithful mother dog, and a loyal shepherd began their slow march toward survival. And behind them, far back in the forest, 6 men watched from the dark, but this time they were not laughing. The forest had grown darker, not only from nightfall, but from the oppressive presence of cold, where even the wind felt like an unwelcome witness to their struggle. Ethan's breath came out in uneven clouds, the weight of Noah Carter heavy across his back. Noah was half-conscious, his normally stern features, strong jawline, high cheekbones, and military-hardened expression, now slack with exhaustion and pain. Blood had crusted along the side of his face, his lips pale and cracked, his usually sharp gray-blue eyes dull beneath swollen eyelids. He was a man trained to survive ambushes and deserts. Yet tonight, he was simply trying to stay awake, to not drown in the white silence around him. Beside them, Luna stumbled through the snow, her steps shaky, her eyes not sharp with military readiness, but clouded by pain and fear. She was not just injured, she was pregnant, too soon, too cold, too far from safety. Her thick sable fur, once glossy, now clung to her body in clumps of frost, and her belly, round and trembling, contracted every few steps. Ranger walked tight on her other side, protective, watchful, his ears twitching at every crack of branch, his amber eyes never leaving her. He usually walked boldly, chest forward, but tonight he moved lower, slower, gentler, as if he knew Luna was carrying something more precious than any mission. "Stay with me, Carter," Ethan muttered, voice hoarse, his own legs trembling beneath the weight he carried. "You pass out now, and I'll leave you here with my dog, and he bites harder than the wolves." Noah let out a low, weak laugh that sounded more like a groan. "Your dog would probably give me medical aid, not bite." "Don't test him," Ethan muttered, though the corner of his mouth almost formed a smile. Snow thickened, falling faster now, blurring the world until nothing remained but white, breath, and heartbeat. Halfway down a ridge, Luna collapsed unexpectedly, her stomach tightening violently. A soft, pained whimper escaped her as she dug her paws into the snow. Ethan froze. Noah stirred, eyes half opening. Ranger nudged Luna desperately, then looked back at Ethan, pleading. They could not go further. Not like this. A fallen cedar lay nearby, its roots lifted just enough to create a hollow, a place shielded from wind. Ethan carried Noah into the shelter, laying him gently against the bark. Then he knelt by Luna. Her breathing was shallow, strained, her eyes wide but not panicked. There was something in them. Trust, or hope, or simply exhaustion. Ethan didn't know which hurt more. For a moment, the forest was silent. Then Ethan said something he never imagined he would say. "Not in this life. Not in these woods. You're going to have to help me deliver puppies, Carter." Noah, barely able to lift his head, gave a dry, pained smile. "Guess you finally got promoted, from soldier to midwife." Ethan shook his head, suppressing a laugh he didn't have energy for. He reached out, wrapping his coat around Luna, his fingers trembling, not from cold, but from fear. He had patched up soldiers, held dying men, delivered bad news. But this was life. Literal life, happening in a place meant for death. Ranger stood close, gently licking Luna's ear, his breath steaming in the cold, his body shielding her. He did not bark. He simply stayed, a guardian of warmth in a world frozen. Time blurred. Minutes or hours passed. Ethan could no longer tell. He tended to Noah's wounds intermittently, then returned to Luna, helping with towels, cloth, whatever heat he could create with shaking hands. At one moment he paused, feeling the weight of it all. He was a soldier, a loner, a man who chose isolation. Yet tonight, the forest had given him something he could not walk away from. Then a faint cry. Not a wolf's howl, not pain, a whimper, a new sound, a small, fragile sound of life against a world of ice. Luna had given birth to the first puppy. Ranger remained beside her, head bowed, as if in reverence. Ethan felt something in his chest shift, a warmth foreign to him. Noah's voice, weak but clear, broke the silence. "Ethan, you just became part of something bigger." More crying. 2 more puppies, then a 4th. Tiny bodies squirming against their mother's chest, steaming against the cold, fragile yet determined. Life had arrived in the snow, and it sounded like hope. But they could not stay here. Luna was exhausted, injured, vulnerable. Noah was weak. The storm would only worsen. They had to move. Ethan gathered the puppies inside his coat, creating warmth with his body heat. Noah stood, barely, and leaned heavily against him. Ranger walked beside Luna, nudging her, guiding her, never leaving her side. And so, under the howling moon, they walked, not fast, not strong, but alive. Hours later, lights, not moonlight, not flashlights, warm light, building light, the ranger station. Maggie Lewis was the first to burst through the doors. She was in her mid-30s, tall and lean, her long auburn hair tied into a messy braid, freckles across her pale cheeks, intelligent green eyes wide in shock. She was known for being calm, precise, always in control. Tonight, she looked almost scared. "Is that Noah Carter? And are those puppies?" Tom Harper, a broad-shouldered mechanic with a sandy beard and warm brown eyes, rushed out too, wearing a flannel jacket in disbelief. "Did you rescue him, or adopt half the forest?" Behind them appeared Brody Kellerman, a young tech specialist barely 22, shaggy blonde hair, nervous eyes, soft-spoken but brilliant with equipment. He held blankets and looked both horrified and fascinated. Ethan didn't answer. He just walked past them, his voice steady at last. "Medical room. Now." Inside, they wrapped the puppies in heated pads, tended to Luna, cleaned Noah's wounds. Maggie looked at the map Noah carried. Wrong, distorted, deliberately misleading. She frowned, then looked at Ethan, and for the first time, Ethan spoke without hesitation. "Dennis Ward sent him there." Silence filled the room like thunder. Outside, snow kept falling, but inside, life had already begun. Outside, dawn should have been near, yet the sky stayed black, heavy, and colorless, as though even morning feared stepping into this night. Inside the ranger station, dim emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the wooden corridors, bouncing off shattered glass and flickering across faces that no longer looked calm, but alert, drawn, and quietly afraid. Noah Carter sat upright in the cot, eyes no longer fogged with pain, but sharp, stunned, and slowly filling with an anger he hadn't felt in years. He was still bruised, his left eye swollen, his ribs aching from the brutal beating, yet his mind was once again operating like a seal, collecting, analyzing, fixing what felt wrong. He held a sheet of papers, route schematics, patrol signatures, timestamp logs. His jaw clenched slowly. Across from him sat Maggie Lewis, her usual calm composure replaced by rigid concern. She wore the olive-green ranger jacket with her name stitched neatly above the pocket, her long auburn hair now tied into a tighter braid than usual, as though structure could replace stability. Her normally warm green eyes stayed fixated on the falsified papers, reading the same 3 lines over and over. "The altered coordinates," she muttered, voice tight. "They're identical to the ones from 6 months ago, when I filed that first suspicious report." Noah didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied the signature at the bottom. Dennis Ward. His crisp handwriting, always slightly slanted left, except this one leaned slightly right, forged yet almost perfect. Almost. Someone signed it deliberately. Someone who knew Dennis's habits. Someone inside. Ethan Cole stood by the window, arms crossed tightly across his broad chest, his faded green military coat now stained with dirt and Luna's blood from earlier. The coat itself looked as though it had seen both war and forest, frayed, faded, but unwilling to be replaced. His stubbled jaw was set sternly, his hazel eyes alert, watching every shadowed corner, like a soldier who didn't fully retire, but simply changed his battleground. Ethan spoke quietly, but firmly. Ward didn't just sign off on that assignment. He lured Carter there. He knew there were illegal cutters in that area. Maggie looked at him, hesitated. Ethan, are you saying he sent him there to die? Ethan didn't blink. That rope didn't tie itself. Tom Harper entered then, still wearing a heavy flannel coat, now with a rifle slung over his shoulder. He was in his late 40s, tall and solid, the kind of man who fixed things when they broke, not because it was his job, but because people trusted him to. His sandy beard was graying near the ears, lines at his eyes showing worry more than age. His voice, normally warm, was low and grim. Generators just cut, he said. Radio's dead too. Power might be intentionally disabled. That can't be the storm, Maggie whispered. Tom shook his head. Storms don't break landlines. Silence. Tight, cold, and full of more danger than any blizzard. Then came the sound. Not thunder, not wind. Gunfire. Windows cracked, wood splintered. Something crashed at the main entrance, followed by the sinister crunch of boots in snow. Noah moved instantly, grabbing the handgun Tom tossed him. He winced from pain but steadied his arm like someone whose body remembered training, even when broken. Ethan took position at the hallway corner, just where light and shadow met. Ranger stood beside him, growling deep and steady, not ferocious but promising. Luna, still weak but conscious, lay in the medical room, surrounded by towels and heat pads, her newborn puppies nestled close, their eyes still sealed shut. Maggie stayed beside her, rifle trembling slightly in her hands, yet her voice steady as she whispered reassurance to both mother and pups. Boots drew closer, slow, unhurried, as though the intruders didn't fear resistance. Then came a voice, calm, cultured, coated with polite venom. Dennis Ward. He stepped into the hallway like a man arriving for a meeting, not an ambush. He looked immaculate, navy coat buttoned up, scarf neatly folded, handgun dangling casually by his side. He was in his early 50s, tall and polished-looking, someone who always seemed more politician than ranger. Salt and pepper hair combed smooth, trim beard, and pale gray eyes that reflected no warmth. He smiled as if entering a dinner party. Well, he said lightly, looks like our Navy SEAL survived after all. Hanging upside down in the snow tends to be rather final. Noah stared at him with that cold kind of silence soldiers used. Ward walked forward slowly, boots crunching over glass. I told them to leave you with wolves, he said conversationally, but clearly nature has a softer heart than I do. Ethan stepped out then, rifle raised. You lured him to die, he said calmly. No shouting, no anger, just truth laid bare. Ward's smirk barely shifted. Some men die with honor, he said. Some die quietly in the woods. Then Ranger growled. It wasn't just a warning, it was a rejection, a protest. Ward's eyes flickered with annoyance. I see the mutt survived too. That was the moment Noah moved. Hurt, concussed, but silent as shadow. He took position beside Ethan, and for once their different wars seemed to align. Gunfire erupted, sharp, chaotic, echoing through the hall. Ethan ducked left, shot clean and controlled. Tom flanked right, dragging a wounded Brody, who had tried desperately to fix the radio, back into the safe room. Ranger lunged at a masked intruder, biting down on his arm, holding him just long enough for Noah to shoot the gun out of his hand. And then, in the middle of the chaos, Luna whimpered. A new puppy. And another. And another. Maggie, still beside her, tears in her eyes, whispered, "They're being born while we're fighting." She exhaled a shaky smile. "They don't care about war. They chose tonight to live." When the final intruders fell back, sirens began to wail from the distance, Spokane police and federal backup closing in. But Dennis Ward lay on the ground, a bullet grazing his shoulder, his plan undone, not by bullets, not by soldiers, but by the cry of newborn pups and by the men who refused to leave them behind. Dawn finally broke over the battered ranger station, not with color, but with a pale glow that softened the edges of ruins. Splintered wood, shattered glass, bullet-scarred walls, and wrapped them in a quiet kind of dignity. Inside, silence was no longer frightening, but healing, interrupted only by small sounds of life. Faint squeaks, tiny yawns, the soft rustling of fur against wool blankets. Luna lay on a makeshift bed of towels, her sable and black coat ruffled, her breathing tired but steady. 5 tiny newborn pups nestled against her belly, their fur still damp, eyes closed, squeaking in blind wonder. Ranger, bandaged from the grazing bullet on his shoulder, sat beside them, unusually still, as though guarding not just Luna, but the future itself. Noah Carter stood there silently, his injuries tended to by Maggie, but his mind elsewhere. He stared at the tiny bundle of life, 5 breathing miracles, evidence that even when the world descended into chaos, something innocent still chose to live. His normally hardened expression softened, the deep lines near his eyes easing. He was a man used to loss. Brothers gone in sandstorms, names folded in flags, guilt carried like armor. But tonight, for the first time in years, he wasn't surrounded by death. He was surrounded by life. His voice broke softly. "I couldn't save my team that night, but tonight, I didn't lose anyone." Ethan Cole leaned against the doorframe, his signature faded green coat now shredded at the sleeve, patched with black tape and dried blood. His face, usually stern, carried a rare trace of humor. "Well, Seal," he said, lips curved slightly, "congratulations. You're officially promoted." Noah glanced at him. "To what?" Ethan smirked. "To Uncle of the Year, assuming you can survive the diaper stage. Though with puppies, I guess it's the newspaper stage." Even Maggie smiled through exhaustion. She was normally composed, a ranger who never raised her voice and always tied her braid tight and neat. This morning, her hair was falling loose, her eyes red from tears she didn't bother to hide, and her voice softer than usual as she whispered, "They're beautiful, Luna. You did good, girl." Days turned into weeks. Repairs began on the station, broken wood replaced, glass refitted, and walls painted. Yet no one painted over the scratch marks where Ranger blocked gunmen from entering the medical room. "History," Maggie said. "Some scars deserve to stay." With support from Spokane authorities, a new unit formed, Spokane Ridge K-9 Rescue Team. Noah remained at the station as K-9 security advisor, using his military tracking expertise to train search and rescue dogs. Ethan, with quiet leadership and dry humor, became head of field operations, guiding teams on snow rescues, avalanche response, and deep forest search missions. Ranger became unofficial commander, calm, disciplined, experienced. Luna became Mom General, respected by rangers and puppies alike, now healed, stronger, and proudly guiding her litter. And the pups? They grew fast. One, bold and sharp-eyed, was named Storm, born just as gunfire shattered the station. One gentle, calm, with Luna's eyes, was named Grace. One turbulent and rowdy, always stealing gear, was named Bandit. 2 others, Ash and Scout, specialized in search patterns, often surprising people by leading them straight to lost hikers. They weren't just puppies. They were survivors of a night when war met birth, and life dared to win. Some weekends, elderly ladies from Spokane drove through the snowy trails, bringing baskets of oatmeal cookies and knitted scarves for the dogs, whispering, "They're God's little miracles, wrapped in fur and 4 paws." A year later, snow again blanketed Mont Spokane, soft and deep, the world shimmering under winter's silver breath. On a hill overlooking the town, 2 figures stood quietly. Noah, shoulders no longer weighed down by silent guilt, and Ethan, coat still green but patched, leaning on his worn hiking pole. Ranger sat beside them, posture calm, eyes warm, while Luna lay nearby, watching her now-grown pups run across the snow like streaks of brown, gold, and black, leaping, chasing, living. Noah exhaled, not with pain, but peace. "I once thought my life only had room for shadows," he said quietly. Ethan nodded, eyes following the running dogs. "Shadows are real," he said softly, "but sometimes they're just the background for light to show up, barking, clumsy, and stealing your sandwich." They stood there in the hush of Spokane winter. One soldier, one veteran, and a family that didn't begin by blood, but by survival. And somewhere in that shimmering silence, it felt like the forest was whispering too. Some miracles don't crash like thunder. Some simply walk toward you on 4 tired paws and remind you that you are not alone. In the quiet hush of Spokane's winter, where the snow falls like whispered prayers, this story leaves us with something deeper than survival. It reminds us that miracles don't always roar like thunder, nor arrive on clouds of fire. Sometimes they come quietly, wrapped in fur, limping through the cold, or wearing a worn green coat. Sometimes they appear when a man has lost all faith, when hope seems buried beneath fear, frost, and memory. And yet, right when the world seems silent, he sends loyalty on 4 paws, courage hidden inside broken men, and love disguised as second chances. Maybe that's how God works. Not always with lightning, but with purpose. Not always with answers, but with presence. He sends us people, and sometimes dogs, who don't walk away. He reminds us that even the coldest night will break into morning, that even wounds can become wisdom, and that sometimes the smallest heartbeat in the room carries the loudest message of hope. We all face winters, loneliness, fear, loss, or the kind of battles no one else can see. But if this story tells us anything, it's this: there is no night too dark for God to send light. There is no soul too broken for Him to heal. And there is no moment too late for Him to whisper, "I'm still here." So tonight, may He bless your home, your family, your loyal friends, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4. May He send warmth to those who feel forgotten, healing to those who are hurting, and strength to those still fighting their silent battles. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who might need a little light. Tell us where you're watching from, and maybe who your Luna or Ranger in life is, the one God sent when hope seemed lost. And if you believe that miracles still walk this earth, sometimes with muddy paws, leave a comment with Amen. Subscribe and stay with us, because every week, another miracle begins. And may God bless you, protect you, and remind you that hope always finds its way home.